obsolete, irrelevant. In an age when desire has become amplified, but where lust can be sated electronically.
This is Brian with Screenphiles.com and review. What I'm looking at today is Hellraiser Judgement, directed by Gary J. Tunnicliffe, who did the special effects for Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. And this is a problematic movie. Ironically enough, it's a step in the right direction for the Hellraiser franchise, but as a movie, it's problematic. Reason being, Tunnicliffe understands what makes Hellraiser Hellraiser. Namely, there's the sacred and the profane, the perverse and the not perverse, if you will. These are things that are necessary to the Hellraiser franchise. And to forget this is to abandon what Clive Barker essentially based it on. So, Gary J. Tunnicliffe understands these ideas, that there's the sexual and the holy, and you bring them together. He gets this, and this is something that's been missing for the most part for most of the Hellraiser sequels, which I might add are essentially money grabs, in the sense that to hold on to the rights to a property, a studio will often have to make movies just to maintain those rights. This is partially what was done in Sony's case for the Spider-Man movies, in that if they didn't reboot them, I think the amount of time is somewhere from 3 to 5 years, they would lose those rights. So they have to make Spider-Man. I should say they had to make Spider-Man movies, which also explains why some of them were such utter crap. The same thing applies to other franchises, such as the Hellraiser franchise. They have to make Hellraiser movies after a period of time, or they lose the rights to the franchise. Clearly a franchise that Dimension wanted to hold on to. So you get movies like Hellraiser Deader, Hellraiser, virtually any subtitle you want. Most of the movies, most of the sequels I should say, were not particularly good. And Hellraiser Judgment is, as I said, one of the better Hellraiser sequels. But there are huge caveats with that. As I said, Gary J. Tunnicliffe understands the mixture of sacred and profane that are important to the Hellraiser franchise. He gets this. Conversely, though, his vision lacks nuance. It lacks subtlety. So, Hellraiser Judgment gets pretty repulsive at times. Needlessly repulsive, I think. Because, as I said, it lacks subtlety. I had actually eaten prior to watching Hellraiser Judgment, and certain parts, you know what they are if you've seen it, and if you don't, you'll know. I'm not even going to give it away. But I felt a little queasy because it's really nasty. And I think that's what he doesn't quite get. It's that subtlety, it's that nuance that makes Hellraiser Hellraiser. It's not gross for grossness' sake. He doesn't quite get that. His understanding of the franchise is a broad one. He gets it for the most part, but what he doesn't get kind of undermines Hellraiser Judgment. This movie plays like one of the lesser sequels. I'm sorry, that's not fair, and it contradicts what I said earlier. It plays like a sequel to the original movie, one of the better sequels, but still not as good as it could be. Part of its issue is that the story is kind of scattershot. You don't emphasize with the characters at all. I didn't care about these people. The movie doesn't tell you enough to make you care about them. And I'm not convinced the movie makers even care about these people. So as a result, I didn't care about them. And their appearance, for me, distracted from the narrative. Another thing is that there's a new character introduced called the Auditor, played by Gary J. Tunnicliffe himself, which is an interesting character. But it's too tentative in the sense that I got the feeling he wanted to make this character the heart of the franchise for him. And he should have just done that. Instead, he puts Pinhead in, played by Paul Taylor, who actually does really well, by the way. Certainly better than the awful Pinhead from Hellraiser Revelations. But he's not really in the movie. Except in certain moments, but he's not really in the movie. It's not his movie. And that's a problem. I wish that the Auditor was what he should have been in this context, which was a minor character. The movie revolved around Pinhead. Pinhead who we know, Pinhead who was well played by Paul Taylor, and who was given short shrift, essentially, by Gary J. Tunnicliffe. That was a problem for me. I wish he would have just either not put Pinhead in the movie entirely, make it revolve around his interpretation of a Cenobite, the Auditor, and just move on with that. Instead, though, he sticks Pinhead in little moments. And when the narrative is clearly not revolving around Pinhead, and I would argue he's not necessary to the narrative at all. He should not have been in the movie. And again, that's not a criticism of this new version. Doug Bradley's Pinhead was definitive, was certainly the best interpretation of this character we're likely ever to get. But Paul Taylor's interpretation was pretty good as well. It's not Doug Bradley's because he's not Doug Bradley. On the whole, he did pretty well with it. But I blame the director/writer, Gary J. Tunnicliffe, for that. He didn't give the character room to breathe. He didn't give him the platform he deserved. Instead, he made him a bit player in a movie which should have been his. That was problematic. As I said, the story is scattershot. They're unsympathetic characters. I didn't care for them. There was no reason given for me to care for them, which is the worst thing. But that aside, this is probably one of the better Hellraiser sequels. It certainly deserves a watch. And Gary J. Tunnicliffe, perhaps a co-writer who understands the mythos as well, could really bring a lot to this. This is a step up from what we've been given. But is it the Hellraiser we need or want? And that answer is no, it's not. This is Brian with Screenphiles.com and Review. Peace.